You stopped praying for the thing, not out loud, not as a decision. You just stopped reaching for it the way you used to. And the strange part isn't that you stopped. The strange part is what happened after. There was no guilt, no collapse, just this quiet, this flat, still, almost unfamiliar quiet, sitting exactly where the longing used to be, and you didn't know what to do with that, because your whole life the reaching felt like proof that you still believed, proof that something was still alive in you. And now the reaching is gone, and you're standing in the space it left behind, and you're asking yourself a question you've never had the courage to finish. What if the silence isn't absence? What if something stopped you from asking because what you were asking for was never the thing? Ibn Arabi spent his life circling one idea, that the soul is sometimes guided not by what it receives, but by what is quietly, carefully taken away. That the hand that empties you is the same hand that chose you. And you felt that, didn't you? You just didn't have a name for it yet. And you wake up and it's fine. Everything's fine. You're breathing, you're moving, you're doing the things you're supposed to do. But something inside is quieter than it used to be, like a room where someone used to sit, and now the chair is still there, but the person isn't. You don't know when it started. That's the strange part. There wasn't a day, there wasn't a moment. It just shifted, slowly. Like how you never see the season actually change. You just look outside one morning and realize the leaves are different now. And you've been sitting with that, haven't you? Not telling people, not even finding the words, just carrying it. This weight that isn't exactly heavy, but it doesn't leave either. I want to share something with you. Not to teach you anything. I don't have anything to teach. I just have felt this exact thing. And I want to share what came through on the other side of it. Because I think something is happening to you, something you didn't ask for, something that doesn't look like a blessing from the outside. But I think you might be in the middle of something you can't see from where you're standing. Ibn Arabi said something once. It wasn't in a lecture. It wasn't packaged into something easy. It was just an observation. He said, "The one who is chosen doesn't always feel chosen. They feel removed, taken apart, like something is being done to them, not given to them." And I remember reading that and thinking, oh, that's what this is. Because we always imagined being chosen would feel like light, like something opening, like doors. We thought if something divine was happening to us, we'd feel it. We'd feel warm, lifted, sure, but that's not how it came. It came like silence. It came like the things you used to reach for stopped satisfying you. It came like you tried to go back to how things were and you couldn't. Not because you failed, but because something in you refused. Like your own soul started saying no to things your mind was still reaching for. Have you felt that? When you want to want something but you don't really want it anymore. And that gap between what you think you should feel and what you actually feel, that gap is where something is living. I don't know what to call it. I'm not going to call it anything. But it's there. And the strange thing is, it's not depression. It's not sadness, not exactly. It's more like clarity that you didn't ask for. A seeing. And what you're seeing scares you a little, because you're starting to notice that the things you were chasing, the version of the future you were building in your head, it doesn't feel as solid as it used to. Not because it's gone, but because you are changing. And we don't talk about that. About how terrifying it is to change, not in a dramatic way, in the quiet way, In the way where you look at yourself and you think, I don't fully recognize who this is. I remember who I was a year ago, and I think, where did that person go? And more honestly, do I even miss them? Ibn Arabi wrote about a concept, and I'm not going to use the word because words get in the way sometimes, but the idea was this. There is a stage in the spiritual life where the self starts to dissolve, not dramatically, not in a mystical vision, just quietly. The edges of who you thought you were start to soften, and what you built your identity around starts to feel less like you and more like something you were wearing. And that's a frightening thing to go through, because you don't know what's underneath. You've been you for your whole life. The same fears, the same desires, the same version of yourself that you've been protecting and explaining and defending. And now something is loosening all of that, and you don't know what will be left. But here's what I think. And I'm not sure about this, I'm genuinely not. But I think the loosening is the choosing. I think when something higher, and I'll let you call it what you call it, when something higher has its eye on a soul, it doesn't add things to that soul immediately. It takes things, it empties, because you can't pour into something that's already full. You can't reshape something that's rigid. So, the taking is not punishment. The confusion is not a sign that you did something wrong. The distance you feel from things, the way things feel hollow that used to feel solid, that might not be loss. That might be preparation. For what? I don't know. And neither do you. And I think that's the point. Because if you knew, you'd rush. You'd try to build it yourself. You'd get in the way. The silence is keeping you from getting in the way. You thought you were losing everything. But maybe something was being taken, carefully, from someone who couldn't have let go voluntarily. Think about the things you tried to hold, the version of yourself you were protecting, the future you designed that didn't ask anything unexpected of you, the relationships, the dreams, the image of what your life was supposed to look like, and you gripped all of that. Of course you did. Anyone would. But something loosened your grip, one finger at a time, and you stood there thinking you were failing, thinking you were falling apart, thinking you were losing your way. But what if the way couldn't be found while your hands were full? Ibn Arabi wrote about the heart, about how the heart is a mirror, and a mirror only reflects clearly when its surface is clean. And the cleaning, the polishing, it's not gentle. It's pressure, it's friction. It doesn't feel like a gift when it's happening. It feels like loss. And you've had some of that, haven't you? Things that polished you in ways you didn't consent to, pain that didn't ask permission, a silence that moved in and didn't announce when it would leave, and you went through it. You're still going through it. Some days you think it's over, and then it comes back in a different shape. Not worse, just different. Like it's teaching you something different now than what it taught you before. That's not coincidence. A wound that keeps teaching you is not just a wound. And I want to say something that might not sit right at first. I want to say it anyway because I think you need to hear it. You are not the same person you were, and the part of you that's grieving, that is real. Don't dismiss it. Don't rush it. The grief for who you used to be is legitimate, even if who you used to be was limited, even if you were smaller then, even if the old self was holding you back. You still knew that self. You understood it. It was familiar. And this new quiet, this unrecognizable stillness, it's unfamiliar. And unfamiliar things feel like danger even when they're not. So you've been sitting with this unnamed thing. this feeling of being in between, not who you were, not yet who you're becoming, just here. In this strange middle space where nothing has completely defined itself yet, Ibn Arabi called spaces like this the Barzakh, the in-between, the place between two oceans that don't mix, the threshold. And it sounds poetic when it's described that way. But living it is not poetic. Living it is this confusion, this vague unrest, this sense that something is shifting but you can't name it or hold it or control the direction. That is the Barzakh. And the interesting thing about thresholds is that you only know you're at one in retrospect. While you're in it, it just feels like stuck, like you haven't arrived, like you're waiting for something but you don't know what. But you're not stuck, you're crossing, slowly, in ways you can't track. Day by day, the crossing is happening. The person on the other side of this threshold, they're not who you would have designed. You couldn't have designed them, because the design requires the undoing of the old design first, and you are being undone. Carefully, specifically. Not everyone goes through this. Some people move through life without their foundation being touched. Their self stays intact. Their certainties don't crack. And that sounds easier. And maybe it is. But something is happening to you that isn't happening to everyone. And I don't say that to make you feel special in a way that inflates anything. I say it because I think you need to understand that this specific kind of disorientation, this specific kind of interior silence and shifting, it doesn't come to every person. It comes to the ones whose depth can handle it. Not because you're perfect, not because you're already good enough, but because something saw potential in the depth of your capacity to feel. You feel too much, always have, even when you pretend you don't, even when you've gotten good at functioning on the surface. Underneath you feel everything, and that's not a flaw. That's the instrument being chosen. A string that feels nothing can't make music, but it's hard. It's hard to be a string that keeps getting plucked. It's hard to be always in the feeling of things while other people seem to just move on, to not carry it, to let it roll off. You wonder sometimes if there's something wrong with you for staying in it so long, for not being able to shake it, for waking up years later and still feeling the echo of something. There's nothing wrong with you. The echo is the teaching. The teaching didn't end. Ibn Arabi described a kind of love, and here I use the word carefully, a kind of love that the divine has for certain souls that looks from the outside like difficulty, like being tested constantly, like doors closing, like reaching and not arriving. But from the inside of that love, eventually, you start to feel it differently. Not as punishment, as attention, because what is suffering at the hands of something that loves you, but the most direct communication that exists? Easy lives don't hear that voice as clearly. Comfortable lives don't develop that ear. It's the ones who have been made to sit still, who are made to listen, who start to hear something underneath everything else. You've been sitting still more than you wanted to, more than you chose. The stillness was chosen for you. And in that stillness, even if you haven't named it, even if you wouldn't use the language I'm using, something has been happening to you. A quiet reformation, a gradual reorientation. The things that used to pull you forward with certainty, they pull differently now. The desires feel different. The ambitions feel different. Not gone, but clarified. Like something is slowly sorting through what you're reaching for and asking, is this really what you want? Or is this just what you thought you were supposed to want? That question, that constant quiet questioning, that's not anxiety. That's discernment being installed. That's something wiser than your current self speaking upward into your daily life and saying, be careful what you build toward. Be careful what you give your life to. Not everything that shines deserves your years. And you're listening, even if you don't know you are. Even right now, you're listening. Ibn Arabi returns to this again and again. The idea that we don't find our spiritual station, we arrive at it. Gradually, through living, through losing, through the specific accumulation of experiences that only our specific life could produce. You cannot rush to your maqam. You cannot study your way there. You cannot will yourself to the depth of a soul that has been slowly shaped by everything it has gone through. The shaping takes time. The shaping takes the specific gravity of your specific losses. No one else's losses could have done this to you. No one else's silence. No one else's particular brand of longing and distance and confusion. Yours. Only yours. And that means you are not behind. You are not failing the process. You are in the process. Exactly where the process requires you to be right now. I know that doesn't make the middle of the night easier. I know it doesn't make the unanswered questions lighter. I'm not saying it to comfort you in a false way. I'm saying it because I genuinely think, looking at the shape of what you've been through, looking at the specific way your life has been pressing on you, something is being made. Not built, made. There's a difference. Building happens when we're in control. Making happens when we're material in someone else's hands. And you've been material. You've been in those hands for longer than you realized. The things you thought were obstacles, some of them were the exact pressure needed at the exact point of your formation. The person you will one day understand yourself to be, they'll see the necessity in all of this. The precision. They won't be angry about it. They'll see why this had to happen exactly this way. But right now, you can't see the precision. Right now, it just looks like mess, like delay, like loss. That's okay. That's how it's supposed to look from inside it. You don't have to have the perspective now. The perspective is being built for you. It will arrive, not as an idea, as an experience. One day you'll just see it, and it won't need an explanation. Until then, stay in it. Don't run from the quiet. Don't rush back to the noise because the silence feels like something's wrong. The silence might be the most important thing that's ever happened to you. You've been in something, a process you didn't sign up for, a choosing that didn't ask your permission, a reshaping that used your own life as material. And I think on some level you already know this. You've known it. You couldn't name it, but you felt it. That feeling of something bigger than you being at work in your life. That slight sense that even the things that broke you weren't random. Hold that, not as certainty, just as a possibility, just as something to sit with. Because the person you are becoming, they're worth the confusion of who you are right now. Maybe this isn't the end of what you were. Maybe it's just the part where you stop recognizing yourself.